does that mean? What does it look like? So let's begin the conversation today. Now, those who are watching online, you guys can help us out and join the conversation in the blog section as we ask the very questions we want to hear from you. So please make sure that you blog along with us so we can hear your comments. We'll repeat that back so that those who are here and will hear us, or those who what you have to say. You guys were great last week. This is absolutely phenomenal, and so we want to hear from you this week as well. So don't forget, make sure you blog along with us. Hit that share button as well. We certainly appreciate that. So what is the biblical view of social justice? Now, I did kind of already in the introduction, I kind of pushed you in the right direction so that for those who aren't familiar with it, you have a working point. Now, we know this at least. There are about 564 verses in the Bible that deal with social justice. That's really staggering. 564. There perhaps are some more, but we know at least 564 verses in the Bible that deal with social justice. So what is the biblical view of social justice? Someone? Yes, sir.
I think that what you just ended up in the beginning, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Okay.
That deals with a lot. That means you should treat the next person the same way you would treat yourself, probably in a fair and just manner.
The next person, that means that this person is next to you, or just?
Oh no, people in general, as a whole.
I just want to make sure, because they asked you the question, well, who is my neighbor?
Okay.
So this is who we would clarify. All right. Any other comments in that? What is the biblical view of social justice? You got a correct expression, loving your neighbor, helping out those who are less fortunate. I mean, it's a gamut of things that the Bible actually talks about that we're supposed to do. Be fair in judgment. We're not supposed to be unfair. We're supposed to have fair business practices, unfair in business practices. The Bible actually tells us that whenever our business practices are unfair, that's an abomination to God. And so the church is so easy to point out the fact that homosexuality is an abomination, and we ignore the fact that our business practices, when they're unfair, they're also an abomination to God, which would mean then not just undermining someone else's property or product. It also deals with your services as well. So you're supposed to be in your own service as your performance on a job should be that which reflects the Lord as well. So we get a working idea, and it kind of nudged in that direction in the introduction. Let's go a little deeper then. So what are social justice issues? What are they today? What are the issues of social justice that we're dealing with right now? Some things that come to mind.
Sex trafficking.
Okay, sex trafficking. Yes, sir.
Fair wages.
Fair wages. Okay. Yes, sir.
Gender bias.
Gender bias. Yeah. What else? Yes, sir.
Unfair punishment in the court system.
Sure. Unfair punishment in court systems. Mass incarceration. Gun violence. Sexual orientation.
Biases by individual social economic status.
Sure. Yeah. What else? What are some of those? What about religion? Yeah. Religion is definitely one. Racism? Okay. What else?
Harassment.
Harassment? Okay.
Harassment.
Sure. Yeah. So as you can see, there are okay. They're saying on Pam is saying equality. Equality is one of those as well. So there are obviously many social justice issues that exist. They're not limited to the ones we mentioned. So there are many of them. So what we want to do is at least kind of put them out there, start talking about the idea of what these issues perhaps are, and which will lead us into question number 3, and that is, when I identify the conflict between God-centered social justice and a man-centered social justice, and how do we reconcile the two? How do we reconcile the two? Because believe it or not, there really is a difference between how we view social justice from a biblical point of view, or a Christian point of view, or a God stance point of view, and also the man-centered point of view, just to kind of get your brains thinking so you'll understand what I mean by that. Sexual orientation is a conflict between what the scripture has to say in reference to what the social justices or contemporary social justices would say. So how do we reconcile the fact that the Bible refers to of course, the orientation, sexual orientation of a man being that of a man and a woman, you know, and showing those particular gender roles, when the scripture tells us this, and then there is someone in the world today who might feel differently or a contemporary worldview where perhaps you might choose or get to choose your own sexuality. How do we reconcile the two? Now, I'm not limiting the conversation just to sexual orientation at all. I'm just giving examples of like swings. There are conflicts between the God-centered social justice and also man-centered social justice. How do we reconcile the two? Yes, sir.
I was sitting here thinking, listening to your beginning dialogue, we got my mind going about how will we view one of our churches with the way that we believe, where you have somebody, you know, in the gay community deal with like a hate crime, where somebody is killed or something like that. How would we view it if we saw one of our churches support from the aspect, you know, the person shouldn't be killed? I don't know what kind of backlash, you know, within ourselves, how we review it, but really, if you look at what's being presented, it is a valid point to say, hey, the person got killed, and for the reason why it's wrong. We may not agree with the lifestyle, but they didn't need to get killed.
Right, absolutely.
Now, what do you think, what kind of conversation would you have Zion temples out here, and, you know?
I think there'd be an interesting conversation just in general with churches, period. I think maybe we might be a little different here. But many would probably, unfortunately, there would be some churches that would support the fact of a hate crime because of the sexual orientation. Unfortunately. But then there are those who would be appalled. And I know some friends personally who would be appalled. And I'm thinking pretty sure, if I know Zion, I think they'd be appalled by someone being killed because of their sexual orientation as a hate crime. I think as this church, I think we'd be appalled. At least I'd like to think that we would. I'm seeing heads shaking, saying yes, we would be appalled. Yeah, but let's consider also not just sexual orientation, but let's look at our history. The KKK came out of Bible-sponsored concepts. Okay? Slavery came out of Bible-sponsored concepts. And we can't ignore that. It was a reality that took place. And not just that, but there are many others that we're guilty of today as well in the church. But how do we reconcile the fact that people would have used the Bible to demean another ethnicity and to use them for their own will, which was contrary to what the scripture says? How do we reconcile the two? How do we help to heal? What do we do going forward, looking forward? And there's just two examples. We have many other examples that we could go with, from mass incarceration to unfair punishment to those who were incarcerated or in the court systems, and gun violence, and people were toting guns in Jesus' name to gun down people who sit on their property, and many of the people who are advocates for NRA are Bible-believing, Christian or church-going individuals who will fight for the right of their gun. Not because of an ill. I have many friends who do possess a firearm. I don't believe they would actually shoot a human, but there are those who the thought is in their mind, and Christians, and that's not a race thing. I see that. I know that on both sides. I've got some who are Black Americans and white Americans who feel the same way in regards to their guns. So they're real issues. Yes, sir.
I think, when it says how do we reconcile the two, when something is true, you have to fight for it. You can't be quiet.
Okay.
And then there has to be a strategic, strategized approach to opposing something, but just to sit back and just be quiet about it, that allows it to keep going on. You have to speak up and say something, and fight for what is right, even to the point. I mean, if you get sometimes you have to die for what you believe in.
So speaking up or voicing is one way to begin a concept of reconciliation.
Yes, coupled with that with education.
Okay.
I think sometimes when people are on either side, sometimes of particular items or topics, they may be well versed, and it's not always, but most of the time they're very well versed in whichever side they are supporting.
Sure.
But providing an environment that is welcoming, by which, you know, as John said, you're not buckling or giving into one's perspective, but having it be free where you can educate and provide those truths. I think that begins the opportunity for others to expand their knowledge and then, you know, start to question and work on that resolution.
Sure. And I think that education is so important. We've got to be able to not just talk. We've got to talk intelligently. That's important. We've got to be able to present, you know, the facts from both ends. Valid information, not just theoretical concepts or experimental ideas. That they've got to be a real foundational, substantial. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And I also think too that, like, with the education, there has to be concepts that we can execute right there and then. I think knowledge is knowledge, understanding is just being conceptual, but wisdom is being able to apply those things. So I think that being able to build a different type of bridge where we could truly understand the perspective of culture, tradition, and all those things that add to who we are as a people. And I think that once we can understand those perspectives and those aspects, then we can have a better conversation.
Sure. And that's important. Go ahead.
I want to tell you what they said. I read this comment in a book dealing with America's history. It said, the comment was, when ignorant men became educated, then they said, why are we paying taxes to King George? They got educated, they said, wait a minute, why are we paying taxes? And then they go piggyback on what Angel was talking about. That's when you had the Boston Tea Party.
Right.
That tea in the water and said, we ain't paying no taxes no more. But as long as they was ignorant, they had no problem with it.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that it's our ignorance that has it's killed us in so many ways and stifled our development and growth. And unfortunately, in 2018, we're still experiencing, you know, elements of ignorance, which, you know, has the ongoing concept or the kickback from that is divides that exist because of ignorance. But we can't ignore that they do in fact exist. So how do we reconcile the two? How do we bring together issues of racism? And we're seeing in 2018, as an example, we're seeing nationalists rise up. We're seeing supremacist groups begin to resurface from years ago. Now in 2018, we're seeing the nationalists rise up for varying reasons of becoming an increasing minority. So the thought or feel that they'll no longer be a majority in the United States. And so there's a kickback that comes from that feel of being superior just because of a birth that one has, or the complexion of the skin gives them a right of existence to be better than. And that's just not even within the racial concept, but we have to be honest as far as gender is concerned as well. Did the church help a male to win presidency for fear of a female being the president? You know, and how does that relate to our churches? Can we stand or a female presider It can be rationalized in our mind. In a church world, a female being the presider of a church organization, you know, can we rationalize the fact that that would occur, or being vice presider? How do we rationalize that concept? And we still struggle with ideas of a woman pastoring church. And so how do we deal with, you know, a woman being in a major role within, as John's shaking his head, how do we deal with that? Because the reality is these things did occur and are occurring in our world today. We can't ignore that. It's a reality, and we aren't blind to the fact that there are issues of racism that does exist in the country. I want to do something for really quickly. In your own self, in all honesty, is there any racism in you at all? And I'm saying racism, I'm not just referring to against white America. I'm referring to any ethnicity at all. If you look in your own heart and be in an honest inward look, is there any racism in you at all? Now, you don't have to answer it publicly unless you just want to. Go ahead, sir.
Do you mean racism or prejudice? Because isn't racism more so, it's not just a dislike for another cultural community, it's also when you need to take a certain power, right?
It can get to that end. You got nationalists who are racist, but they don't. They understand the need for other ethnicities. They just believe that they have to be the superior race because of intelligence, economics, and etc. A nationalist would be, in theory, is different from a supremacist. The nationalist would exemplify as much bigotry as a supremacist would. The nationalists would feel as if, well, we need to be the lead, you guys be secondary too. We need you in the economy, but you should be leading us. Whereas the supremacist disdains the thought of the existence of another race. So there are differences in between nationalism and a supremacist. So I'm saying racism, it has a lot to do with being prejudiced. The prejudice is prejudging, which is, in all honesty, stereotypical. So, yes.
And racism has the factor, I was just checking out the definition just to make sure between the two, where it says that you feel as though your race is superior. Mm-hmm. So just in thinking about that, that's a bigger.
And it can be induced by fear.
Yeah.
In many ways, unfortunately. Induced by fear.
I don't think, like for me personally, I don't have any racism in me, but I feel like I do subject myself to stereotypes.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is just being completely honest. Like, if somebody does something in particular, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's like, it's like a white thing, or,
okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think stuff like that, but I wouldn't say it's racism.
Okay. Let me ask you this though: Can stereotypes lead to racism?
Absolutely.
So how do we put the stereotype in check?
Exposure.
Exposure? Okay. What else? Go ahead.
Well, I say exposure because the more that you surround yourself with what maybe you have a stereotype or a prejudice towards, the more you expose yourself, the more it gives the opportunity for it to debunk your stereotype or your prejudice concepts. So exposure, because there's always going to be an exception to your framed rule, and the more you're exposed to the exceptions to the rule, hopefully the more it chips away at your mental rules.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I was raised around largely white America. We were, when I say the extreme minority, we were really the extreme minority. My older brother Levi was the first black to graduate from the high school there. I was the second, just so you understand where I'm coming from. So we were an extreme minority. It wasn't that there weren't blacks or so in the area, but they just didn't exist. But we were, or wasn't predominant where we were. Now, when I moved to Delaware, then to Maryland, it was a culture shock for me because I wasn't used to, on a consistent basis, being around so many blacks on a consistent basis. And just, I would go to towns or cities and I'd experience it, but it was not a consistent thing for me. So it was indeed a culture shock. Now, what I learned or picked up after that was because I was different when I came here. People say to me, "Hey, you know, you're earning your black card," and I was trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? Because you know, I don't use slang. You know, is that so? I'm getting the idea now, and I actually had someone sit down and tell me, you gotta watch these movies to get your black card, and you know, I was like, oh. And the reality is, the movies that they were talking about, they didn't even show in the area. But when I went to school on a daily basis, it wasn't something that was. My parents didn't talk about that coming out of the house, that you're black. It wasn't a topic of discussion. We weren't taught that this is white America. It wasn't a topic of conversation. It was more we were just immersed into, and it's not that we didn't know that racism existed, because there were some pockets of racism that did occur, but the large majority was not. So it was a lot of what we also talk about, going back to education. Some things are taught to individuals, and perhaps maybe we need to figure out how we're going to educate the generation after us, so that we don't reproduce the same thing that was done in generations prior, and perhaps even some as well. Your hand was raised?
Yes.
Okay.
It takes me back to an incident back in school. This even throughout middle school and even up to now, like I still have acquaintances that like call me different because like I may use big words or so they might call me like, oh, you act white, you talk white and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it's kind of fascinating to me because like they believe a black person, like I go to school in Edgewood, so they like feel as though in order to be black you have to be raised in Baltimore and stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was birthed in Baltimore, but I wasn't raised in Baltimore, so I don't have the Baltimore style per se. So it's like different for them because like, and most of my friends they're not black. They're like different. I have a variety of friends, so because like mom always taught me like you want the different cultures and stuff, because you want to surround your people with better people per se. Like and then it took me back to one service where someone was preaching. It's like you want to be smart, you want to hang around the winglings and stuff like that. But that's the stereotype that we're trying to avoid. Right. But that was just like I'm not trying to like post my. But anyway, but that's like what I started doing. Like I started, and then it broadened my horizon, or to like look for different things or different people, because each person brings a new something to the table. New flavor to the table.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Good.
So.
Your hand was raised?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we wasn't raised like to focus on race, because I remember one time for Christmas when I was young, my mom was like, "Do you want a black or white baby doll?" And I was like, "It doesn't matter." Knowing myself, I probably would have said both though. But like, I don't know, it's crazy because I wasn't raised that way to see race. Not saying that I didn't see race because I'm not colorblind or anything, but I I don't know, it's just like, it's, okay, so like, you know, Black Panther came out and everybody talking about they're proud to be black, and so then everybody was like Wakanda forever, and then calling white people colonizers and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't really know how to put it, but it's like, I don't know. I'm just gonna stop talking because I have like thoughts on it, but I just don't know how to put it together to
Sure.
explain. Okay, that's it.
Well, I watched the movie because of the hype.
Right.
You know, I enjoyed the movie, but I didn't feel it any more black when I left out. I thought it was a really good movie, and that was my perspective. It was just a really good movie, and I think it's because of how we were raised, perhaps. And so that thought of feeling that I'm empowered as a black man, well, I already felt empowered as a man. Does that make any sense to you? I felt empowered as a man already, and so not because I'm a black man, it's because I'm a man, and having a sense of identity already. The movie didn't give me a sense of identity. Does that make any sense? The superhero movies give me hype anyway, you know, and I'm like, I want to just, take on the world and take on violence and all that kind of stuff. So I felt, you know, like I felt hype like that, and I thought some really cool technology that they had in the movie. But as far as feeling, you know, empowered as a black man that we can do this, well, I feel like I feel like I can do it anyway. Because of the Christ, you know, and having that sense of identity. Does that make any sense?
What I found interesting about that, because we were actually having that conversation at work, what we found interesting about that movie grossed here at home $1 billion. That's one with a B.
Yes, sir.
$1 billion. Yes, sir. We did that for cinematic experience, but yet we can't do that to increase our buying power in this country.
Absolutely.
Or increase our voice into speaking into something that is more viable and that could actually push us in the conversation forward.
Sure.
So that movie to me signified the fact that we could do it if we wanted to. And we could actually shift this country. But then the question begs again, like, why are we now?
When we have, as far as blacks and Hispanics in America, we have huge buying power, but our money is spent in entertainment and the clothing industry, which is really interesting because it's kind of showing where our best interest is. We like clothes, we want to be entertained, but when it comes to buying on insurance companies and being a major real estate mongols and etc., our focus isn't on that. And what's even more sad is that we don't teach our children the need for tomorrow. We have very rarely, and just idiosyncrasies, we discovered that people want teaching their children about 401ks or about retirement. You know, we're going to have to retire at some point in time, and why aren't we preparing for retirement? Why aren't we teaching our children, when they enter the workforce, start preparing for retirement then, so that you can retire early? You know, those are the kind of things that I think that are important talks. So, maybe we're so focused on just trying to get them out of high school, and out of high school and out of the house, like, whew, we're done. We forget that, hey, you're gonna have to retire, at some point in time. And you're gonna have something to fall back on, you know. And I think it's good to have a retirement job, but I don't think that retirement job should be your source of income if the bottom falls out. That makes sense.
I think what makes the movie kind of powerful and why you saw like the money and the support for the movie is because it's imagery. And I think for people who need that self-esteem boost, the imagery is so powerful. And I think we can tie it in even in the church and everywhere else. For example, let's say if we have books that our students learn from in children's church, then seeing images that look like them, whether they're skinny, whether they're a little bit more plump, whether they're girls and boys, seeing Asian Americans, seeing Latino Americans, seeing African Americans, so that the imagery reflects that people can identify. So with Black Panther, it did feel good to see that cast. It felt good. And then for me, I also grew up in an all-white environment, and for me it was the opposite, because they made us feel so bad for being Black. They made us feel bad on the school bus for leaving hair grease marks on the back of of our seat. And so the concept kept ringing, like no one said this, but it felt like white was right. So for us, you know, I never went more than 4 weeks without a perm, because I never wanted my hair to be puffy. Sure. So then when I had the experience of going to a HBCU, it really picked up my self-esteem to be okay with being Black and not wanting to use bleaching creams or not wanting to be light-skinned. So for me, because of my experience, the imagery was powerful. Like, it's the reason why, you know, I'm excited about Michelle Obama's book, is just because she looks like me. But it's not just about me. For some Asian young lady, then she sees a woman that's not naked on the front cover making lots of money. So I think imagery is so powerful, and I think so it helps debunk stereotypes. I think it's powerful in churches. I think it's powerful even in our worship, whether we use other imagery with our, you know, if we have banners up, like the banner should reflect America like a melting pot. Like, it should reflect a little bit of everyone, not just all at one race on a banner, or not all one type of songs. Like, when the times that we've intertwined other languages in our songs, I think that's important, because it exposes our children, and it teaches them that, you know, other people, you know, Jesus is in all countries, and so you don't have to think that you have to, like, that you're the only American has a monopoly on Jesus, you know. So I think that's important too. And then maybe even in our churches, like, as we, you know, sometimes we've had foreign ministers or different things that help expose and stretch our thinking and the imagery to see reflections of everything, of the whole rainbow.
Let me ask you this. So you mentioned imagery, and they're very powerful. You give it the perspective, because from where you were raised, large amount of white American, but your experience was different from mine. So our feelings that coming out of the movie was a little different because of how our environments that we came out of. I get the idea of image, totally understand. But do you think the image should be taught at home before it should be seen on film? Well,
unfortunately, I think it should, but unfortunately it can't be when parents are working double, triple shifts, when there's a lot of single family homes and the parent, whoever the single parent is, has to work a lot, or when parents and people are dealing with, let's say, mental illness or personal conflict, and they don't have the ability, or they don't have enough to pour into their children. It's like the movie Cable Guy, when the guy said, I learned the facts of life from watching the facts of life. Like, unfortunately, a lot of people are learning, they have to learn these things. If they don't get it from YouTube and from TV, it's not being taught at home. So then the movies become more powerful, media becomes more powerful, celebrities become more powerful because of what's not happening at home.
Okay, I agree, but could it not also go in a negative way, because now we start living vicariously through what we see?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Can you see your hand?
Well, I learned at an early age about racism.
Okay.
Even though I still see it yet still today, very prevalent today, I also informed my child at a young age that there's going to be certain people that's not going to like you just because of your skin color. There's going to be people there's going to be children in school. When you go to school, they're not going to think that you're as smart as they are because of your skin color. There's going to be jobs when you graduate, when you get out of high school. You're not going to get certain jobs because of your skin color, and they're going to think that you're uneducated. Where I currently work today, I see it coming in to where I work. There's officers that people of color are seen more fully than the other minorities.
Sure, sure.
Courtrooms, sentences are not the same. But the difference from here in Harper County, where they call it Hazard County, if you were to get sentenced here and get the same charge down in Baltimore, the sentence is different.
It's real unfortunate.
You know, it's you know, when we growing up, you know, we knew about, you know, R&B songs and stuff like that. But I was noticing with my kids, because they was growing up looking at Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, R&B wasn't thing for them. Pop song. They're picking up all these pop songs. I'm like, man, I can raise these little, you know, I was like, what is going on? And then we got to the point that, you know, one of them, you know, they thought they were, you know, Caucasian.
Okay.
They said, I'm Caucasian. Y'all white. I said, no, so-and-so, I'm on Caucasian. I said, you black. But, you know, it was so funny, though, when they said that, it made me think about myself. When I was like 3, 4, 5, you know, my father's light skin, my mother's dark skin, so when I was younger, I was a little lighter. But when you look at the imagery on TV back then, you know, late 70s, early 80s, there wasn't really a lot of black TV shows on. Everything was dominated white. You know, I'm looking at, you know, Happy Days of Fun. I identify with that. So I thought I was, you know, Caucasian. And my mother said, no, you African American. But with my kids, I had to kind of show them where we came from. Now, when my wife said, I don't think you should be doing it to her, I said, no, I want them to know. So I'm sitting down, we looking at Eyes on the Prize, we marching with Dr. King down Selma. And then my kids said, who did this to us? They was really like confused, like,
Sure.
we was sitting in the back of the bus, we couldn't stay at a hotel, we couldn't eat at a restaurant, and, you know, and all this is the norm now, you know, to go to restaurants, hotels, stuff like that. But you're right, we do have to kind of emphasize showing them where we come from to appreciate where we're at now, and to even fight on for even more when you see certain things come up that you have to fight for.
Yeah, absolutely. Just so you all know, I see your hand. Those who won't watch online, but I am not in disagreement with Black Panther. Not at all. I thought it was a great movie, you know. But I appreciated the content, etc. I didn't have the wow experience because of, as far as being feeling empowered as a black man, because of how I was raised. And I'm going to explain this more so you understand. We were taught to appreciate culture and not look at ethnicity, if that makes any sense. So for me, and I hear you say, well, you know, you see color. Well, I differ with some of those comments because I love culture. I appreciate culture, and I'm looking for first is culture. I'm not looking at the person's color of skin, if that makes any sense to you. And so, although I appreciate the movie, and I thought it was great, I love the technology and all that, I think it's awesome. But then also having traveled to the continent of Africa and seen so many, I've seen some affluent places in Africa, but I've also seen some impoverished areas there as well. But I've seen some affluent places in the United States, and I've seen some impoverished places in the United States. So what I've learned is that a mindset actually has to do with a lot of class distinction. It's just a mindset, the desire to live above and keep people suppressed. You know, it's really sad. And so even in those countries, what I've seen is that there are people who are living fluently, and they've got, you know, a myriad of servants, but they're paying them pennies. And I can't think in my head, well, why are you doing that? You can bring them up and help them to be better, but you know, the class system, and many of those are you're either affluent or you're poor. It's either one or the other. And there's really no middle class this thing. So your hands up?
Oh, yes. This takes me back to I was in elementary school. And we, as we grew up, like we said before, Mom didn't teach us the difference between color of skin. But like we didn't grow up in rich areas and stuff like that. Like we if you would say like an average citizen or something, live in like average houses and stuff like that. But when I was in elementary school, I never had, sorry, I never had the, like, the conflict of, like, racism with, like, other races and stuff like that. It was, like, mainly was my race, like, black people, African Americans. So, like, I remember, like, trying to, when we had recess, and, like, going to play with, like, other friends or so, what I call friends. Playing with them, like, as black people, I think, like, I'd be joined because, like, I'm black, so, but I really didn't know the difference at the time. But they were always like, no, you can't play, your hair nappy and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, your hair nappy too, but, like, I can't play and stuff like that. Right. But I was new to the school, so they thought, like, I felt like I was better than them or so, when, like, all in general, I was like, I'm in the same boat as you. Like, we don't have the best of clothes or stuff like that, but we live it. So I never really experienced it from other races, but
you know, right. Yeah. And that's we really have to do better with teaching within our own houses, and then making sure that when even in the churches, we gotta make sure that we stay away from online.
Yeah, there's a couple comments there.
Okay.
Some that even said the same as
So then we gotta be careful with our stereotypes, because stereotypes do lead to racism, and we've got to be concerned about that. Even within the church, making sure that we don't speak disparagingly towards others. When we were starting in some of the earlier, we started the bilingual ministry, you know, and it was unfortunate. Some people, when we were trying to do it here at the church, who had, you know, racial slurs or stereotypes that they were using, which was taken as racial slurs, and so we got to be real cognizant of that. We don't like it done to us, so we should make sure that we aren't doing the same thing to other people. I did see a number of comments that people were making online about
their own experiences. So, like Renee, she mentioned the same thing. She said, I think in her younger years, growing up, she had more racial slurs come from people of her own ethnicity.
Gotcha.
And then others just commenting.
I think Renee also said that she has got her black card as well.
Yes.
Your hand?
Yes. Also, what I experience is, and we have to watch it with the older black African American homes, because of their experiences, they could portray to their kids that prejudice of people. I've experienced that. So, you know, we have to be careful on what we talk and how we talk and how we comment on certain things. You know, oh, that's, you know, yeah, that's because that's who they are. No, blacks could do the same crazy stuff. So we got to be careful, or, you know, the oppression or what they lived in the 50s and 60s, they still have that in their minds. And so every comment is prejudice. Every comment is against, you know, so we have to, older blacks need to watch how they talk to their kids, grandkids, because that could start that prejudice and looking at the white kids or white people differently.
Absolutely.
I went to a school that I didn't know no better. The older I got is when I realized, okay, wow, there's something going on out here, because I went to high school and, you know, the whites and the black was in Key Club, Keyets, you know, movie.